Kingsley Potter, MD of Y&R Johannesburg. Welcome to the Red Zone.
Thanks very much.
Firstly, welcome back to the industry. I'm sure the advertising folk are glad to have you back.
It's great to be back. It's good to be back into a space where one sense of narrative and history very easily comes back. Unlike certain industries where you have to go through a learning curve, the only bit of learning is just the insider bits of the agency. But when it comes to clients' business and what it is that we do, the narrative is easy and the value add is immediate. So it almost feels like I haven't left.
What were the main factors that convinced you to come back into advertising and specifically join forces with Y&R?
My career's meandered. I started at SA Breweries and then for 7 years in brand marketing, and then onto the advertising space for another 7 years. Joined South African Tourism for just under 2 years as Chief Marketing Officer, and then ventured into a bit of my own space for about 4 or 5 years, tried some opportunities around commodity trading, a bit of work around World Cup, around a project called the 2010 Fine Art, which is quite interesting. And there was always this little bit of a calling of a voice, to get back into a space where there's an easy sense of comfort. My foray back into it was with a company called VWV, where I served for about 6 months, but the chemistry wasn't quite right. And we all parted ways quite comfortably. And this opportunity came up. Sure, Y&R was, in fact, the day after I had submitted my resignation, I got a call. And learning a little bit about the agency and a whole series of conversations and interviews, talking to some industry individuals, got a sense that it's an agency that has had a very interesting history, is positioned in a very particular space, but its ambition is greater than where it is currently perceived. And that sense of ambition has made me come back into advertising too, very specifically why I selected to step into the Y&R office space.
Now, you've only been back for approximately 5 weeks or so.
Thereabouts, yeah.
What have been your main observations internally and externally?
Well, internally, a business is a business, and obviously how we dance, it's like a relationship, relationships are generally the same, but it's the chemistry that happens within a relationship. And within the Y&R business, or the greater Y&R family, not just the Johannesburg office, the sense of community is extremely evident. The sense of continuous improvement. How do we make the agency a better place today? And we have this internal conversation with Andrew Walsh, our CEO. Like, if tomorrow is 1% better than today, then we are definitely on the right track. And that's the ethos that we have inside of the business. So it's about continuous improvement, how we look at processes, how do we refine, how do we make things sharper. And more importantly, or most importantly for any business, is going to be around your talent, and going through a process of being clear about which of your talented individuals you want to hold on to, nurse, and there are other individuals that probably aren't quite the right chemistry fit, but as the dance of careers go, individuals will each find the best placed. For external parties, the interesting bit, or the learnings, observations, is I've been out of the space for the marketing space for 4 to 5 years. Stepping back into it, very little has changed, particularly against the sort of greater transformation issues that we all are supposed to embrace. Very little has changed. Where there are impetuses for change, they happen, but they happen at a very slow rate. I'm happy to say at Y&R, when the business embraced a charter, a BE charter, right from our board chairman, Yoshi Swart, the impetus has been very, very strong to drive that process of transformation through the business. So externally, I think very little has changed in terms of composition, but the market dynamics continue, and they will forever continue. In the space of advertising and communication, hasn't changed dramatically for the last 80 to 90 years, save maybe in the last 4 to 5 years, where digital has started to play a very interesting role. And a business like ours, we understand what kind of digital solutions are needed for the future, and we've partnered with the right set of businesses that are within the group to take solutions to clients.
Something else that will continue to be part of this entire industry is competitors. What do you feel agencies need to do to stay ahead of the curve?
You're right. There will always be competitors, and it's interesting. It's kind of silly, unlike boxing, where you have to go mano a mano with your competitor and do stuff against them. In our space, it's a game of perception, and it's not negative perception or negatively orchestrated perception. It's about building a business that becomes attractive for clients to walk towards you. Increasingly, we all do pitch on business. Very seldom do you have a piece of business that walks in unless it's a realignment of a global account. But in spaces where we pitch, our peer space, when I interact with other MDs, we're very jovial. We understand where the battle is. The battle is not between each other. The battle is in the power of the ideas that we present and how the recipients respond to them. So there's never a sense of negative advocacy between agencies. If anything, it is more of a camaraderie, fellowship of conversation to make sure that we as an industry become better.
Now, Y&R is basically in the business of brands. What do you feel are the main issues that are going to be experienced by brands, and how can they supersede them in 2013?
For brands, the most powerful area that they're going to have to respond to is what's happening in a political and an economic space. We are going through an economically depressed growth space. Share of spend on discretionary goods is declining. The cost of necessities are increasing. If you look at taxes, we're all looking to see what Pravin Gordon's speech is going to be about. There's a lot of expectation that's going to be a bit more increased taxes, particularly on your high middle to your high income individuals. So we can expect for brands, because consumers don't have the right amount of funds, they may start switching brands and start looking for alternatives. So the critical bit for brands is to remain relevant, and remaining relevant that's the role that we play in the communications industry, is to be absolutely pristine about understanding what problems we're looking to solve and how we create that compelling relationship between parties. At Y&R, we've got a thing called the three I's. It's about insight, ideas, and impact. And it's only on the strength of insight that you can solve what a key brand problem is within a societal space. The ideas, and that's the genius of our creative team, where we are fortunate. We've got Graham Lang, we've got Rui Alves, and both of them are globally renowned creative individuals. And impact, and that's where we're increasing our dialogue with our clients when we've launched a campaign, to review and assess how impactful the campaign was. Building digital into it, we are then therefore forced to, and happily so, to more instantly review the impact of campaigns. And as we review the impact, we then find that there are obviously easy opportunities to adjust, particularly if a campaign is flexible enough to do that.
Now, brands are having to change the way that they speak to consumers, like you said, with all the economical and political issues that are arising. Agencies also then have to change the way that they work with those brands. What do you think the agency of the future is going to look like?
Agencies will always be duty bound to do two things: is to understand the client's business and to understand the consumers. We have the internal expertise, we've got the internal competence. In the absence of understanding broader business needs or business objectives, not just what the brief says, but how that brief fits into the broader expectation of what the business is expected to deliver. That bit for agency is absolutely critical. And being duty bound to understand consumers, that is, how do we consume other alternative bits of media types? How do we go and immerse ourselves into different societal spaces? How do we consume different bits of information that's being produced, be it locally or internationally, and try and craft and find those insights which we can share back into brands? So agencies will forever be duty bound around those two areas. How you do it well will determine your relative amounts of success. I think clients will increasingly become less worried about how many awards a particular campaign has won, but they will look at the balance sheet. How has this improved my balance sheet? Are we getting the results? I'm spending 10 million rand on a campaign. What's been my return? And agencies are being forced to deliver against that, and at Y&R we're exceptionally happy to do that, because within the global network we've got a range of companies with a range of interesting tools to help businesses get to answer those questions.
Now, looking into the future, there's no doubt that digital is going to be one of the main players. Is there anything in the space that we don't know already that you could enlighten us on?
I'm sure you guys know a little bit more, or significantly more than I do. I mean, yes, you're right. Digital is here to stay. I'm sure with the first sets of TV advertisements some 80 years ago, there would have been a bit of consternation. Is it going to work? Is it the right thing to do? But we can see the impact of when there's nascent change, it does in time become embraced. So digital, yes, it's a medium that is there. It's probably one of the most dynamic mediums. Content has been varied, from reality shows to your classic commercials to product placement, etc. So within that space is where brands have performed. Within the digital space, because of the amount of smart individuals out there, how individuals relate and work with the digital platform, be it on your tablet, be it on your phone, be it on walking past a screen that motion senses, be it near field communication where you're ID tagged. The dynamism in that space is, I think we're probably just scratching the surface, especially in the consumer and especially in the retail consumer market. And for some of the clients that we work with, especially at Pick n Pay, there's a very strong impetus to get to stronger and better grips with how digital can help solve some of the problems. In fact, one of the units that we have in the business is called our shopper unit. And an interesting piece of information that was shared with me, again using digital technology, is of any shopping or supermarket, individuals shop 25% of the floor space. So what are we doing with the other 75%? That's a very interesting observation. It's not an insight, it's just an observation. What we do with it and how we share that back into our client space, that is the value and the remit that we have to share back with clients.
Now, quite an overarching question. Trends for 2013.
I'm sure we've all read a whole bunch of different books. Economical pressure is nascent. It is there. We all feel it. Efficiencies become, for ad agencies specifically, is going to be absolutely critical. Is how do we sharpen our stance so that we can better serve aspects of varying needs that our clients have. Other bits of trends, yes, digital we've spoken about. That'll always be there. Trends again within the digital space. There's a lot of interesting initiatives. How to monetize interesting spaces in the digital. I think that's going to be an interesting opportunity for those that find the right spaces to do it. Look, further than that, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other trends, but those are the ones that pop into mind right now.
Well, thank you so much for your insights, and thank you for joining us, Kingsley.
Great, thank you.